Six, discuss supervisors' access to files and documents. Supervisor Dupree.
So I put this on the agenda as a discussion item versus a approve or deny. This retains back to the CCAN of documents and historic documents. So, the reason I put it on as a discussion and not a approve or deny is I believe that I need access to fulfill my elective duties. And so quite frankly, you wouldn't go up to vote because you couldn't vote on my ability to do so. My fellow board members seem to have filibustered this topic. I think, and it's starting to marginalize my role as a supervisor by continuing denying me access to the township records that are important for my work as an elected official. The use of irrelevant reasons for denying me have included whether or not the board chair has one key or three keys, or at what point people have come and had keys to buildings, at what point of their term, the first year, the second. It's all irrelevant to the fact that I would like keys to the CCAN to see the historic documents. One of them, of which that I can make a better decision on that. Well, the last topic we had, I might be able to find the historic document to answer that question for myself. How the staff or the board members feel about whether or not, how they feel about me going in there unsupervised by a bonded person is irrelevant. I asked my attorney whether or not, hey, maybe I'll get bonded, and maybe that'll make everybody feel better. He said, hey, unless that CCAN's full of cash, you can't get a bond for papers. It's irrelevant to the topic. The bond is irrelevant to the topic. So I've tried to figure out every different way to access that CCAN as part of my job as an elected official. Mr. Lawson responded to my concerns over the handling and the shredding and the moving of these files by a temp agency. That it was done under the supervision of my fellow board members. That is relevant, because at the time that was done, not one of my fellow board members were bonded. But I'm repeatedly told that everybody would feel better if I was bonded. But you can't get a bond, and none of my fellow supervisors were bonded at the time. They were doing, the temp agency was doing this shredding and filing thing. When my fellow board members were elected, these files were in this building, and they were fully accessible to my fellow board members. They were then reorganized, they were shredded, they were boxed up, and they were moved by order of the board members to an outdoor storage shed that has no surveillance on. No humidity control, and no access granted to me to merely review them after the access was granted to them to do all of those things with them. I no longer wish to put the staff or the public in the having to listen to this conversation anymore. So I am letting you know, I am going to ask the staff tomorrow to give me a key to the CCAN. Unless there is, my fellow board members are denying me access to it, I am going to ask the staff to make me a key.
I'm gonna go ahead, if you don't mind, before any board members speak on this. So if you remember, this came about because we got a request from Supervisor Dupree for key access to these files. This was new to the staff. So we went ahead and asked PSATs, is this normal, is this okay? They said, we do not recommend giving unfettered key access to potential financial documents to anyone that's not bonded. That's the advice we got from PSATs, and that's what we acted on. At no point have we, or do we intend to, not give access. I am a comp time person, I don't make overtime. If you need to make arrangements to come at 8 o'clock at night, I'll be here. That's no problem at all.
So, just to clarify, the financial documents are not there.
We don't know, there might be personnel files in there. We don't know.
Uh-huh.
That's the
I
point.
sure hope not. Wow, are you kidding me?
Wouldn't be.
They could be old ones. I haven't been through every paper there.
Oh,
What I'm saying
Jesus.
is, unfortunately, the unfettered access that is granted to others but is denied to me. The temp agencies, the felons, the moving, the shredding, the piling, they could be getting ruined and destroyed out there in that
Sure.
box as we speak. There's not a camera on it, it's got a $5 box. And whether or not you're comfortable with me being able to access those files is again irrelevant. It's irrelevant. I'm an elected official.
Ms. Dupree, excuse
It's
me,
not
Supervisor
access to the
Dupree,
file.
question. Did you say felons plural?
No,
You did.
no, I didn't. Maybe you misheard me.
No,
Are you picking and word choosing?
Wait, before this blows up, can I ask, if CSAT says,
He said did not, there is no written unfettered access, I'm not in the personnel files. There was some confusion, and to clarify for Mr. Barner, there was some confusion where I kept getting asked back about personnel files, and I kept clarifying, I'm not trying to see the personnel files. There seems to be a miscommunication.
here's my personal thought on this, because I agree with you. There shouldn't be stuff out there, whatever it is, if it's a waste management bill or whatever it may be. It's in the elements, it shouldn't really be in there. But it's 2022, they should be on a jump drive scanned. That's the
Right?
process, right? So I think that's probably something we should look into in the future.
I can help with that, but I can't even get to them.
Well, you probably can get to them. You know, she said
I
she can
will,
stay, right?
I am here
I mean,
8 to 4:30 every day, and I absolutely will stay late. If that's
So-
the hours that you need, I will use comp time.
Back to my original, I don't want it to drone on and on. I'm going to tomorrow asking for keys.
And we got recommendations from PSAT that that's not okay, and our board hasn't told us to do so.
Okay,
I
I would like to
feel
make
comfortable
a
going against
statement.
PSAT.
Oh.
I do not,
That was a no.
I'm sorry. Could you please respect the board's time and
Mhm.
legislation?
Mhm.
My statement is, I really have no opinion on this. I think it needs to be handled between the staff and the supervisor. And if you need guidance between Attorney Sweat, that's what you should do.
To be clear, the staff doesn't have the authority to deny us access. So it has to be us. I need to know who's denying me access. It can't be them, and it puts them in a very bad position.
Who is, I'm sorry, you don't know
I
who's
said it-
denying you?
Yeah, I don't know why I'm asking. I'm saying that I am coming for a key to the Seafair tomorrow.
And why can't we come to a compromise, and I'll tell you, I'll be here anytime you wanna access it.
Why can't I get a key?
PSAT told me I shouldn't.
No, they didn't.
I'm following
They did
my
not-
advice
they
from
did not-
lawyers.
They did not say you should. Reread your thing.
I talked to her.
Unfettered access to financials and, this is historical documents that are out in the weather.
If the board is fine and Gary is fine with us giving keys, you will have a key tomorrow. I don't want to say we're gonna give keys against PSAT's recommendation.
To have her not give me keys.
I'm one.
You're one. So you're the one denying me access to that. So you're-
No, I'm not denying you
You're not
access. I
denying
am not
access.
denying you
Denying
access
access.
to
You're
anything.
down to
I'm
that.
saying you should come down here during normal working hours. The
You
staff
don't
will
get to
open it up.
choose. You don't get to choose that.
You don't get to choose.
I do.
Okay, let me, okay, I've listened to this with 3 meetings. There is some misunderstanding on everywhere, okay? The bond that this township has only applies, as Michelle said, to individuals who are dealing with money, okay? The bond is in place in the event somebody embezzles, steals, makes outrageous payments. We did have a bond that we can call on to replace the taxpayers' money that employee or individual improperly took. So anybody that signs checks, that has access to bank accounts, that's what the bond covers. A bonded employee escorting a supervisor around, that's a no-no. I mean, they aren't even connected.
Thank you.
And
Never said that.
and what I think we need is a policy on the custody and the chain of custody of files. That's that's the issue that you should be concerned about, because the administrative staff is charged with filing documents, keeping everything in proper order, because there's an audit that you've gotta produce those documents, there's an auditor general that may come in. So that, and there are levels of documents. I mean, the documents that are for 2022 that we have to keep for 3, 4, 5, 6 years versus the historical archives, you know, I don't even know that you have to keep them. You know, there's a state policy on destroying documents. So I can see a policy to protect the employees, because if an important file disappeared, they could be disciplined for it. So that's where chain of custody, signing in, you wanna take a file out, look at it. I can appreciate that, but I don't know of any restriction on a supervisor having the key to all township assets. And they're not to be supervised by an employee. I think what PSAP is looking at is financial records, for sure.
Personnel. There was some confusion
And maybe
about that.
even
I wanted to
personnel.
go into the
So
personnel
C
files
can
if it
fine
was
in your
before.
recommendation,
That's
but the financial files in the file room.
Well, there should be, they can look at those.
Oh, no, they can look at them, but to
But that's
have
where
the
we
key-
need to establish a policy,
For the
sign
key.
in. You know, sometimes, if you're dealing with police departments and important records, you have a cue card,
Sure.
so that you know who accessed it. So there's no question, this person had the file last, and now we can't find it.
Absolutely,
That's the policy I'm talking about that I think is non-existent.
correct. So right now, we can give her,
I've
we can
noticed
give
that there's
anyone,
been some uncomfortableness.
Can one person talk, please? This is gonna be very hard to type up.
so just to clarify, you say you don't see any problem with CCAN key access ASAP, but the file room, come up with a policy for chain of custody.
In your private offices and computers, for sure.
Sure.
So, as far as coming and seeing financials or whatever, I have no problem coming during the daytime. Some of the other stuff like that comes up, but I've noticed that there's been an uncomfortableness. I noticed that at the beginning of my term, the file room was always open.
Michelle, would you speak up, please?
Okay, so I noticed that in the beginning of my term, the file room would be open. I was still catching up on things, didn't even know that was the file room. Then I came to look at the ordinances, relatively a month ago. And I've noticed a couple times that I've come here since then, it's locked. So it seemed that even the policy of having the door open, which was pretty regular before, had changed once I went in there to get a resolution book.
I just want to say that, if I may, that occurred because, Ms. Singer noticed that some of the financial binders were switched around, and that kind of made us nervous.
And also because Colin is not an employee.
And once Colin was around,
Because the only,
I think in fairness to everybody, there should be a policy.
yeah.
So everybody knows.
And I have no
how to do
problem with
things.
that being locked at night, having a double thing. I'm talking about the CCAN.
Yeah, so you can, I think we're good.
As far, I have no problem coming regular business hours.
Ms. Duke, can I ask a question? I know you've been down here pretty regularly, all on the weekends, nightly,
In the last month.
yes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so staff, and I don't know if this is boarding personnel, but are you finding anything in disarray? Are you okay with how things are progressing here?
I haven't been anywhere in there other than.
I do know there was a document that I was looking for that was supposed to be, in Sean's office. It was all the Act 537 plans, and we found it in the intern's office, and so.
Actually, it wasn't in the door of the intern's office. I told you I was in the middle. If you were looking for the Mingo, it was in the door already. I'd never
No,
left
it was
that
a 537 plan on the intern office's desk.
Internal, where's the intern's office?
It's the back office there.
Are you talking about the Mingo book? The Mingo 537?
The Act 537.
That was in the drawer of that office when I pulled it out. If you research the cameras, I never took it from room to room.
Oh, okay.
I left it exactly in the office on top of the desk, and I pulled it out. And then I called her the next morning to say I was looking at it, and I left it out because I was gonna come back and read it some more. I couldn't take it home. I was just reading about it. But it never even left the top of the desk of the drawer it came out of, or the room that it came out of. So I am surprised that somebody was thinking it left the engineer's office, because it didn't.
I think Ms. Ayer's point was, office is more than happy to supply any files requested, access requested, whatever. When we got posed with a new question, we went to PSATs and got advice. Now that Gary gave additional advice, we are totally cleared up on the CCAN, and I think everybody's in agreement with the chain of custody policy if there's to be keyed access to the financial documents, and we're gonna come up with something there. So what I think Ms. Yara was getting at is the point that as the administration staff, we feel a really heavy responsibility. Heavy responsibility, aside from being bonded, that when documents need to be produced, they need to be produced efficiently and they need to be produced effectively. And we want to make sure that we're able to do that. And there's been a lot of issues with files going missing from previous administrations and previous times, and we want to make sure that we do that differently. And we want to make sure we're doing it right. And we don't want to restrict any access. That's absolutely not our job. And so, happy to facilitate Bobby getting a key to the CCAN for any supervisor who wants it, per Gary's recommendation. And I think that it's a great idea, and being one of the individuals as an employee that has to produce documents, one of two here, I think that it's a great idea, and I would be in great agreement, and I would feel most comfortable on behalf of the whole township that we come up with a policy, and then I think we have a really great path forward.
Yeah, for the record, I don't know that any of us are asking for a key to the financial room.
So you don't want a key to the file right
No,
now?
I just like it to be open in the work day.
Oh,
that
okay.
I wanna, yeah, for the record, that is a whole different.
So that
I mean, I wanna be able to access, but I could do that on regular,
of course.
as well as probably could anybody else if I had a question. I really just, access to it during the work day, the key was for the sleep.
Sure. This was different than our initial conversation request, so I sincerely apologize for confusing those two. I think we're all on the same page now.
So plan, get a policy, and, well, no, for the, whatever recommendation you said.
Just so it's clear, the access that we're talking about is for supervisors only. Third parties cannot accompany a supervisor and look at township documents. They look under right to know.
Is that happening? It is happening?
It happened the other day.
Oh.
Well, that has to stop. It's just supervisors.
Okay, and can we look forward to seeing what, looking into digitizing these, like what kind of cost is that? Can it go on a server somewhere that's digitally traced?
That research sounds like a wonderful intern project.
Okay, any more on that subject?